warehouse. Floor-to-ceiling boxes, 500-watt light bulbs shining down on the tops of boxes. This is called inventory afraid of the dark. The guys down below had test lighting so they could see where they were going. We said, y'all have a switch? $650,000. We waste $5 to $10 billion every year leaving lights on, and most of it has nobody home late at night. Drive across any of the Bainbridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, and look at the office buildings. You know, most of you are probably not out at midnight or 2 in the morning, but it's the same thing. They're brightly lit. So it shouldn't surprise us that our Asian and European competitors use half the amount of energy to produce a unit of economic value as we do. Well, they have signed the Kyoto Protocol where they're capping their carbon emissions. It's also driving their competitiveness. The built environment is key to getting a handle on sustainability. It is key to our economic future. And right now, it is the source of a lot of waste. Now, almost 40% of total energy, 70% of electricity. Depending on where you are, it can be up to 90% of a region's greenhouse gas emissions. I was in a little town in Tennessee. The building stock, people don't drive a lot. The building stock is responsible for most of their carbon footprint and a bunch of other waste. When people look at dealing with buildings, they typically start with quick return on investment measures. No harm there. And a few behavioral measures. That adds up. They look at structural changes and go, no. You look at the costs, the savings, that's a lot of money. Changing things out, that's a lot of money. We're not going to do that. You can save a lot of money through the quick measures, you can save money through behavioral measures, but isn't it better if you team up all of these and get a much bigger savings? This is now the opportunity that we have. Let the cheap savings pay for the more expensive savings. Do a whole systems analysis of your building. Take lighting. Lighting is responsible for a great deal of the energy use in a typical building. There is a structured way of approaching this, and this is an approach that we teach to companies. We work particularly with small businesses. We have a web-based learning tool called Solutions at the Speed of Business. And Toby, where are you? Stand up again. Toby Russell will be happy to walk any of you through this tool. If you are working in community economic development, if you're with a chamber of commerce and you want to drive prosperity in your small business sector, this approach can enable your companies to systematically capture the profitability that is inherent in sustainability. This is the amount of money that we pay for lighting. Schools, hospitals, colleges, universities, retail. What do? Start with the light that's already there. Most of our companies are in business during the day. Are you maximizing the amount of daylighting that you have? Daylight, humans, all of us, were evolved on the savannas of Africa. We were not designed to sit underneath artificial light. We see better under real daylight. So it shouldn't surprise us that when PG&E did a study, schools that had daylighting had 20 to 26% higher test scores. Walmart did an inadvertent controlled experiment. They were going to build a green building. They put in a lot of daylighting. They got halfway through and lost interest, built the rest of it conventionally. Surprise, they had 40% higher retail sales on the daylit side, and all the associates wanted to work there. If you look at new Walmarts, they all have daylighting. Sometimes it's as simple as opening the blinds. Try this when you walk into office buildings. Just look how many rooms have the blinds shut and the lights on. Get things out of the way of the windows. Frequently, you have to shift where people sit. People like to sit and look out. No surprise there. And then they put their computer there. Their eyes are flipping from the computer to the greater light of the outside. Turn them around and tell them to take a break when they want to go look out the window. Turning off unneeded lighting. I mentioned our distribution center. This can give, just a simple behavioral measure, can give you up to 20% electricity savings. Sunlight. You can bring sunlight into buildings. Many manufacturing buildings are single-story. Put in sun tubes. 15 to 43% return on investment. This is a little better than your 401k is going to do. Light shelves. You can bounce light deep into a building. People like Nancy Clanton, the great lighting engineer, or Mike Siminovich at the California Lighting Technology Center, can show you how to do this. Sun shading. There are shades that you can see through, but that block the glare. There's window treatment that will block glare. Lighting controls. Controls are now ubiquitous. Do the daylighting first before you put the controls in, and then the controls will work better and cheaper. Occupancy sensors. How many times have you walked into a faraway bathroom that hardly gets any traffic and all the lights are on? They shouldn't be on unless you walk in. Walmart started doing this. They put, first of all, in their refrigerator cabinets, they put doors on the refrigerator cabinets. That saved a lot, 70% of the energy. Then they realized that the lights that were in there, the incandescent lights, were actually little heaters inside the refrigerator. So they took them out and put LEDs in. LEDs like coal. And then they said, wait a minute, why are they even on if nobody's shopping? Put the motion detectors in. The kids loved it. They'd run up to see the lights go boink, and where the kids are, the parents are, and Walmart sells more stuff. Trust me, Walmart's not doing any of this out of the goodness of their hearts. Dimming. You can cut the total output 75%. Daylighting controls with occupancy sensors. Again, very nice return on investment. Task lighting. CFLs and LEDs. LEDs use almost 90% less energy than incandescent bulbs and are becoming much cheaper and much more attractive. Cutting down the overhead lighting. It's normally put in before anybody is in the space. Go back and ensure that you actually need as much overhead lighting as you're providing, or whether you can do it better with a little task light. We all know about the curly bulbs. Happily, the incandescents are being phased out. Although personally, this is a problem. I use incandescents because I have a little water pump that pumps water to my horses, and it freezes. And the incandescent bulb is a perfect little heater for the little pipe run. But you guys are not watering horses in Colorado. You don't need these things in your facilities. They are heaters. Going from T12s to T8s, you can put them into pretty much the same fixture, or T5s if you're relamping. Exit signs. Why do we have incandescent exit signs? They all ought to be LEDs. They last a lot longer, they don't burn out, and your building doesn't get tagged with a non-compliance tag by the fire marshal. We did a lot of this in Mi Rancho Tortillas. This is what I make tortillas up in San Leandro. Their COO, Joe Santana, had no earthly interest in sustainability, but he wanted to sell to Walmart. Walmart, as you probably know, has put out the sustainability scorecard. Question number 1, do you measure your carbon footprint? Question number 2, do you report it to the Carbon Disclosure Project? This is a group of young people in the United Kingdom who, about a decade ago, just because, sent out to the Financial Times 500 a little survey saying, what's your carbon footprint? And you can imagine the reaction. For the first couple of years, everybody ignored it. As Tom Rivet-Karnak, CDP's Director of Innovation, once told me, when you're backed by institutional investors with $71 trillion in assets, companies can refuse to answer your questions for a year or two, but not forever. Now, 60, 80, 90% of the companies around the world that CDP targets answer the survey. And with Walmart putting it as question number 2 on the scorecard, companies like Mirancho, what do I have to do? Joe used our tool, Solutions at the Speed of Business, to analyze what his opportunities were in his tortilla manufacturing facility. Put in more efficient lighting, put in more efficient ovens, eliminated waste paper, waste packaging around the tortillas. He's going to save $450,000 over the next couple of years. You better believe Joe is now a big fan of sustainability and was written up in the New York Times. HVAC, heating and cooling, ventilating, air conditioning. Again, enormous opportunities with very nice returns on investment. Here in California, people think, well, it doesn't get hot, it doesn't get cold. Yeah, yes, it does. Again, return on investment up to 60%. People say, I have to have an 18-month payback. And with money tight, that's considered a long payback horizon. You know what a 2-year payback is in ROI? It's a 70% return on investment. You would not demand that of any other investment in the society. Why are we demanding it of improvements to energy productivity? HVAC is typically the biggest single user of energy in a building. And yet in a big commercial structure, you may not want to go changing it out. You may just want to make sure that you're properly maintaining it. The Wallowa Memorial Hospital in Oregon was putting in a new part of the facility, put in super efficient HVAC, saved themselves $52,000 a year. If you're building anew, be sure that you're putting in the best. If you are using existing materials, existing equipment, you might want to talk to Marina Mechanical up in San Leandro. They're experimenting, for example, with ice storage here in California, very cost effectively. As I mentioned, be sure that you're properly maintaining it. Ducts, coils, transfers, very high return on investment in the time that it takes to maintain this stuff. Now people say, you know what, the energy that I spend on this doesn't cost me all that much. Energy is not that expensive. It's a small part of my cost of doing business. When you properly control how you use the HVAC, when you properly maintain it, when you have a building that is operating to spec, you get higher labor productivity. 6 to 16% higher labor productivity from buildings that are comfortable to be in. Buildings where you can see. And what you pay for people is a great deal more than what you pay for energy. Over in Sunnyvale, Lockheed built a new building, 157. They did a lot of proper lighting. The green development people working on the building had to defend what they did from the value engineers, all of whom came in and said, oh, this piece, you can do this a lot more cheaply. You don't need this. The central atrium, no, that's a worker amenity, you don't need that. They said, no, it's structural, it's a lighterium. They defended the green features of the building. Absenteeism dropped 15%, productivity went up 15%. That enabled Lockheed to win a contract, the profit of which paid for the entire building. As Bill McDonough says, the architects gave the company the building for free because of the holistic good design. Office equipment. There is more and less efficient equipment. Be sure that you're purchasing at least Energy Star. Again, very nice return on investment. We spend a lot of money on unused computers. They emit a lot of carbon. You can do so much with your purchasing. With computer power settings. Making sure, I mentioned the example of just turning the darn things off. You can have automated systems that turn them off when they detect that nobody's been using them for a time, power control settings. Again, very nice return on investment. Copying. I'm really excited about this paper. I've been in the cane fields in Hawaii when they burned the bagasse. Nasty stuff. Make it into paper. This is really very cool. Now, once you have the paper, be sure that you use it efficiently. Make sure that your copiers are set to default double side. Turn them off. Put them into a power strip. Little company called Wright Graphics in Washington, D.C. realized that their high-end plasma screens were really still on when they said they were off. Your microwave does this to you at home. It's called phantom load. And if you plug it all into a power strip, when you leave for the day, click it off. Now it's really off. In the case of Wright Graphics, they took their electricity bill from $220 a month down to $90 a month. For a small business, this means a lot. We work to give something back up north of here. LED test lighting, smart strips. They cost them $6,000. First year saved them $73.50. This is under a year payback for these sorts of measures. As Jeff Hollander, the founder of Seventh Generation, said, zero waste is the mother of environmental no-brainers. This ought to be your mantra. Do we have waste in our operation? Then you haven't exhausted all of the innovation that Americans are so good at. The payback on green buildings is again, staggering. But what you pay for people and putting people into buildings where the people are happy, where they're comfortable, is where you get the real payback. Yeah, you get increased property values. The typical green building, though, uses 30% less energy. 100,000 square foot building, $44,000 each year. These kinds of reduced costs give added value to the property. When you have a higher value property, it'll sell for more money. Energy Star buildings sell for $61 a square foot more than peers. They lease faster and for higher rates. Again, Energy Star buildings rent premiums of over $2 a square foot over peers. They have higher occupancy, particularly in a part of the world like this where people are sensitive to these kinds of issues. They want green buildings and the productivity. We could add $200 billion a year to our economy from the increased productivity of putting people in good green buildings and reduced sick time. How many of you have gone into a building in the hot time of the year and had to take a sweater with you to work because the building's too cold? This is just bad maintenance. This is the opportunity that you can bring to your company. When people are in buildings where they're too cold, they're too hot, the air quality isn't good, they get sick. When they get sick, the company loses productivity. Herman Miller found when it put their people in good green buildings, they got a 7% increase in productivity. The Nissan headquarters, 30 to 35% savings on the utility, LEED Platinum, and their people said, I'm more productive as soon as I walk in that building. People like being in good green buildings. Again, what you pay for people, dramatically more than what you pay for energy. So whenever somebody says to you, I don't have to worry about the energy bill, it's a small part of my cost of doing business, remind them that what you do about energy is what drives the productivity. I keep hammering this home because as a country, we aren't yet capturing this. This isn't low-hanging fruit. This is fruit we're squashing as we walk around. And if energy efficiency is low-hanging fruit that grows back, we still have enormous opportunity to squeeze waste out of our operations. It is the doing of that that will drive prosperity again in American business. We can also change how we use buildings. Almost 2/3 of building office space assumes it's going to be one person per seat throughout the day. Really? How many offices have you walked into? There are a lot of empty spaces. And what if you allow your people to work more from home and share workspace? When you give people this opportunity, they become more productive. Sun Microsystems did this, saved themselves $71 million in real estate costs, and had a turnover half that of company average. This is particularly important when you're working with young people. Young people today want to feel that they're being listened to, that they're being engaged, that their opinion matters. The millennials, this generation that's just now entering the workforce, wants to work for companies that have a commitment to behaving responsibly, to being sustainable. What you do in buildings can give the company the ability to say to its workforce, we are more environmentally responsible than other places that you might work. The companies that tout their environmental commitment have a competitive edge in recruiting. Lockheed Martin found that the engaged workforce cut direct costs, cut use of water, cut waste. Stonyfield Farms challenged the workers to be involved in cutting costs and tied employee bonuses to achieving these savings. Interface Carpet Company did the same thing, tied employee bonuses to waste reduction throughout the operations. 1 year, waste reduction became 30% of the company's operating profits. Intel, every single employee's bonus calculated on energy efficiency, renewable energy, the company's reputation for environmental leadership. Looking at ways to reduce our footprint, there's a direct correlation between cutting costs and engaging our employees. These are the sorts of measures that I've been talking about. How is a building lit? How is a building controlled? What is the employee behavior in it? What are you purchasing? What equipment are you using? These are all aspects in which the workforce can be engaged, can be in conversation with management, with facilities managers. Then you can get to the stuff that most energy policy talks about. All the efficiency stuff I've been talking about, and you guys know this. This is the foundation of any good energy policy, and yet it's not what we hear talked about at the national level. We hear talk about, is it going to be solar, is it going to be wind, is it going to be coal, is it going to be nuclear? We need all of the above. First we need efficiency. Once you've done the efficiency, then you can come in and do the renewable energy, and then it can happen very rapidly. Here in California, before the '08 recession, we were building a megawatt a week of new solar. Southern California Edison built a 250 megawatt power plant on roofs spread around the county at a price point, $875 million, that's eerily close to the $800 million it would have cost to build a coal plant up in Montana. The coal plant was canceled because the Utility Commission said coal is no longer the cheap option. There they said wind is. New report out this morning. In Germany, in Michigan, renewables are cheaper than coal. This we are watching literally today. We're watching the tip of this whole energy sector. Again, why is Walmart putting solar on its facilities? Why is it committed to be 100% renewably powered? Because it is giving them franchise to operate. In Palm Desert, the reason this Walmart went in was they said, oh, we'll be 100% renewably powered. We ought to be aiming at net zero buildings, buildings that produce at least as much energy as they use. And guess what? It's coming. Whether you like it or not, here in California, it is now being regulated. California, we get 70% more sun than cold, cloudy Germany. And last year, Germany installed 28 times as much solar as was put in here in California. How come? Germany will be 100% renewably powered by 2050. How come is that Germany has good energy policy. Feed-in tariffs, what are here now being called clean contracts, clean local energy accessible now. Deutsche Bank did a study of the German program, the first 4 years of it. It created 300,000 new jobs. It dropped the cost of solar to the point where next year solar will be competitive with grid electricity in Germany. Wow. Oh, but you say you pay more for these clean contracts, these feed-in tariffs. Yeah, you do. Deutsche Bank found that you pay an average of €2 to €3 per month more, 50 bucks a year. 8.3 billion euro for the 4-year program. Oh, that sounds like a lot of money. What Deutsche Bank found, however, was had they done nothing, had the Germans merely continued to burn coal, they would have paid 9.4 billion euro more. The cost of coal is going up. So yes, you're going to pay more with good energy policy like feed-in tariffs, clean contracts. You're going to pay less more than if you did nothing. And this is why the state of California ought to be the leader in implementing these clean contracts. And I believe the city of Palo Alto is just about to put these into effect, which would be a good thing to do. They're not the first. Gainesville, Florida was the first in this country to put it in. They pay 32 cents a kilowatt hour over a 20-year time horizon. That gives the investors a predictable investment. This is roughly equivalent to what the German program was. They got contracts for the first year in a week. People want this stuff. They've installed over 4 gigawatts, and they will achieve grid parity between solar and grid electricity also by 2013. The second good bit of policy that we ought to have is called PACE financing. In Sonoma, it was invented in Berkeley, called Berkeley First, went in Sonoma in early 2009. In the first 9 months of the program, construction trades went up 8.4%. In neighboring Napa that did not have the program, they went down 3%. Do we want jobs in our community? Do we want to bring back the construction trades? We know how. PACE financing. Oh, and then those paragons of financial rectitude, the bankrupt Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac banned PACE financing on a national basis. This is really bright. So if you all want a homework assignment, go home, write your representative, demand that we ban Fannie and Freddie from interfering with communities' ability to put in PACE financing. There is now a House bill that is wending its way forward, bipartisan support to get Fannie and Freddie out of the way. Be a very good thing to have here in California if we want to drive prosperity, if we want to create jobs. There was a study done here in California by Next 10 that showed that fully implementing AB 32 would add $76 billion to California's economy and create over 400,000 new jobs. I think it'd be worth doing. Well, San Francisco's moving in that direction. They've already achieved Kyoto targets, which is a 7% cut in carbon emissions below their 1990 levels. They reckon to be 100% renewably powered by 2020. They're implementing waste reduction, bringing on renewable energy. This will drive San Francisco's prosperity. Customers care how their products are made, where they come from. This is what drove Frito-Lay to put solar on their facility in Modesto. We're living up to our name, making sun chips. Frito-Lay went a bit further. They cut electricity intensity, natural gas use, water use. Water use almost cut in half, added $55 million to their bottom line, 25% return on investment. They're looking particularly at water. And California is a water short area. Their Arizona plant put in a water recovery system, recycling 75% of the water. Water is the petroleum of the next decade. That's not my quote, that's Goldman Sachs. And yet we are seeing an increase in water use across this country. We're going to have wars fought over water around the world. We are already seeing companies getting in trouble over it. Coca-Cola was nearly run out of India because it was taking a lot of water, not to make Coke, to wash their bottles, clean machinery. You want innovation, figure out ways of running your facilities with less and less water. How do you do it? Figure out each building's mission, its operational priorities. Look at the whole system benefit of efficiency, of renewables, of behavioral changes. Measure it, report it, and partner. Very exciting partnership now between Lockheed Martin Energy, Barclays, Green, and the Carbon War Room. This is Richard Branson's organization to achieve gigaton scale reductions in carbon emissions. They're rolling the program out now in Miami-Dade and in Sacramento. They reckon it'll create 40,000 jobs, $1 billion in tax benefits, $10 billion in increased economic output. And then they're taking it global. What's this increased economic benefit? We know from studies up in Oregon that per megawatt saved in a community, you increase economic output by over $2 million, you increase wages by over $500,000, and you increase jobs. 10 times the number of jobs that you get from investing in any central station plant. McKinsey figured this out. They did a curve of all the ways to save energy or make energy in ways to decarbonize the economy. And what matters here is not the individual numbers, but the size of the relative blocks. Everything below the line pays you back. Everything above the line costs you money. It's an investment. The Carbon Disclosure Project took a look at this, and remember, they get reports from essentially all the world's major companies on their carbon footprint. The carbon footprint is the flip side of your opportunities for energy efficiency. They reckon for an average-sized company reporting to them, there is $30 to $40 million in uncaptured energy efficiency measures below the line on the McKinsey cost abatement curve. That's a lot of money. Now, if what I've said hasn't captured your attention, let's look internationally. I'm sure you all have as your bedtime reading the reports of the International Energy Agency. Actually, until 2007, it made very good bedtime reading. It would put you right to sleep. And in 2007, there was a report, not much noticed in this country. I saw it in the UK, I guess the Financial Times, saying that because of some idiosyncrasies of Mideastern oil field supply, expect some constraints on the supply of oil within 5 years. You all remember what happened to the price of oil in March of 2008? $150 a barrel, 149 and change. Remember what happened in the US economy 6 months later? Bonk, we went over a cliff. 2009, there was an article in the UK Guardian by a couple of guys who had worked at the IEA, said the IEA's been cooking its books. There's actually a lot less oil in the world than we've been thinking. The British government said, say what? We base our national projections on IEA numbers. Where did those numbers come from? A man named Dr. Fatih Birol, chief economist at the IEA, said, well, they're assumptions. But we'll do a real study. The study issued in December of 2009 and again warned that within 3 to 4 years, expect constraints on the supply of oil. This is sobering. The UK government convened an industry task force chaired by the managing director of Royal Dutch Shell, which report issued in March of 2010 calling for an immediate transition to green transport as a matter of British national security. Which is why you are now seeing electric car chargers appearing on the streets of London. And then there's WikiLeaks. Oh, the Saudis have been cooking their books too. This is really not good news. The IEA says the world hit what's called peak oil in 2006. Doesn't even really matter if you believe in this concept of peak oil. It's really clear that tensions throughout the world can drive the price of oil up dramatically. And when that happens, this isn't a red or a blue issue. My friend Jim Woolsey used to run the CIA. Jim is most assuredly not a liberal. He drives a plug-in hybrid car that he fuels off the solar panels on his roof. He had a bumper sticker on the back that said, Osama bin Laden hates my car. He sees this as an issue of national security. And it explains in part why the US military is now moving to implement renewable energy. There are 2 forward operating bases now in Afghanistan that are 100% renewably powered. The Fort Carson Mountain Post will be 100% renewably powered by 2025. Why? Because much of what the military hauls over the Khyber Pass into Afghanistan is fuel. And for every 24 of those convoys, a Marine comes home in a body bag. And they don't want to have that kind of responsibility. So you have Ray Mabus, Secretary of the US Navy, going around talking about the Green Hornet. This is an F-18 fighter jet being flown now on 100% algae-produced biofuel. The US military. You know, if you had told me 5 years ago that Walmart and the US military would be the 2 entities on the planet doing the most to drive sustainability, I'd have offered to eat my hat. It's interesting to think about. If you go back to the first industrial revolution when we invented commerce using water power to make iron and textiles, and then moved on to James Watt and the steam engine and locomotives, where did that happen? Where in the world did the first industrial revolution happen? Remember your history. Charles Dickens? England. And what was happening geopolitically at the time? They were the dominant economy. The British Navy ruled the waves. The sun never set on the British Empire. And then some fool, I mean, this is a little island off the coast of Europe, ruled the world because they innovated. Then some fool found oil in Pennsylvania, and Henry Ford built a car, and Thomas Edison built a light bulb in General Electric. And power started to shift across the Atlantic until by the time World War II rolled around, the industrial might of Detroit was able to pivot in 90 days from making cars to making tanks and airplanes. And the US entered the war, and we've never looked back. Silicon Valley. These things in our pockets that have 3,000 songs on them. I really didn't think I needed one until I couldn't live without it. And this has been the American century. What's next? We all going to be burger flippers? What are our children going to do? What is our economy going to be based upon? The answer to that question will determine which language we speak. Because who innovates rules the world, and what the world needs are the sustainability technologies, energy efficiency, renewable energy, green chemistry, biomimicry. All of these green technologies are the answers to the really gnarly problems facing the planet. How are we going to feed 7 billion people? How are we going to house them? How are we going to build the cities? By 2035, 70% of the world's population will live in cities, many of them the mega cities. How are we going to do this sustainably? Innovation. Shai Agassi is on track to be CEO of SAP, quit to create a company called Better Place. His notion is he's going to sell you a car, an electric car, on the same basis on which the phone company sells you a phone, i.e. less than it really costs, because he's going to sell you a contract to refuel the car, to change out the battery at his renewably powered battery recharging station at the same price point and the same amount of time it now takes you to put gasoline in your car. Daft idea? Well, he's doing it. Danish Oil and Natural Gas and Better Place have signed a contract to begin putting these recharging stations into Denmark. Denmark is flipping from being now 15% renewable, 85% fossil, to by 2025 the other way around. Renault is making the cars, which they will sell you for $12,000. The Europeans are looking at a pan-European smart grid. Big wave off the North German and Danish coasts, and, excuse me, big wind off Germany and Denmark, big wave off Scotland. Scotland reckons to be 100% renewably powered by 2020. Scotland today announced they have put in an underwater wind machine powered by the flow of the current. Wave off Portugal. Solar across all of North Africa, the south of Europe, biofuels, distributed generation everywhere, all hooked together with smart cars, smart houses, and a smart grid. Siemens, the big German industrial conglomerate, has announced they're out of nuclear. They see this as their industrial future. And they see innovation around clean energy as the basis of Europe's competitiveness going forward. Well, we're doing it here too. This is Google. You drive your plug-in hybrid car, park it in the shade under the solar panels, and when you're at work, the car is charging. And it can hook into the grid if you want. RE less than C. This was Google.org's initiative, renewable energy costing less than coal. And last fall, a friend at GE wrote me and said, he wrote to me and a friend who had been the managing director at Google.org, said, when you guys at Google announced RE less than C, at GE, we had to act. And we did. We've now achieved it. We have wind cheaper than coal. And this is in part the Michigan announcement. And he said solar is next. And high time too. We're facing some really sobering problems. Global Biodiversity Outlook 3, science from Dr. Tom Lovejoy at the Smithsonian, follows on the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. We are losing We're losing big. We're losing every major ecosystem on the planet. Coral reefs. By the end of this century, business as usual, there will be no living coral reefs on planet Earth. Sorry, scuba divers. The Amazon. This is a bit more serious. This is the Earth's lungs. We're losing them. And we're acidifying the oceans. This is where it gets really scary. This would be